Who should you be starting on Thursday night? Well, I'm glad you asked. I spent 5 hours researching this slate, and these are the best plays for Thursday night. Beginning with the best play on the slate out of every single position and price range, $9,000 Chris Godwin, because Tampa Bay has 3 injured wide receivers coming into this game, and Godwin is not one of them. You see, so far this year, he's played 80% or more snaps in 3 of the 5 games that he's started in, and in those games, he averages 11.7 targets. Elite usage, top 5 usage in the NFL. And now he'll face a Ravens secondary that is improving as they've gotten healthier, Marlon Humphrey back up to speed, but it's still around league average. So consider Chris Godwin an elite play at this price range, and then let's take a look and talk about Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver 1 for the Ravens. You see, Bateman returned from injury week 7, and he played 56% of the snaps, running 15 routes. Now, this led to 5 targets, meaning he was targeted on 33% of his routes, which is fantastic, but they only threw 16 times in this game, so it limited his upside. And speaking of limiting his upside, he faces the number 3 Tampa Bay secondary now, so it's not a great matchup for Bateman, who's not being used all that much. You see, Bateman is only running 20 routes per year this year, and even in his healthy games, and that's pretty concerning. You want that number to be in the 30s. So at this price point of $7,000, I think it's a fair price point given who's priced around them, and we'll get to those guys later. So he is in play, but he might need a touchdown to pay this off. And if we look at the prop market as being completely distinct from DFS, which it is in a lot of ways, I actually like the under on Bateman's receiving yards. I got it at 48.5. I'll take it. It's under 45.5 right now. I take this with a free bet up to $100 with a link in the description below. Code SAL22 on PrizePicks. Take advantage of. All right, so we talked about a couple of receivers. Let's talk about even more. And I want to focus in on those wide receivers that I said were injured from the Bucs. We can start with $11,000. Shocking price tag in my opinion here. Sticker shock, if anything, to be $11K. Mike Evans, $2,000 more than Chris Godwin is surprising. But Mike Evans got hurt late in week 7. He says that he's okay and he's going to be ready to play, but this is a concerning price tag. He might need a touchdown for sure here, maybe even 2, because it's going to be a tough matchup. He'll be facing one-on-one Marlon Humphrey for a lot of this game, and Marlon Humphrey is only allowing a 68% catch rate this year and not much downfield success to wide receivers where Mike Evans often finds success. But compared to the previous 2 years, Mike Evans has actually been efficient this year. It's actually somewhat of a revival for an aging wide receiver. He's top 25 in wide receiver efficiency. Now at this price point, I'd rather have Chris Godwin, but Mike Evans is actually coming in lower owned in my DFS blueprint, a 5-step system to help you win more weekly in DFS. You can check it out down below, so it makes him a little bit more appealing. But I'll still prefer Chris Godwin, and let's look at these 2 wide receivers here, Russell Gage and Julio Jones. Gage ended up injuring his hamstring, did not return on Sunday. It's unlikely he makes a quick turnaround. I'm assuming he will be out. If he's in, this is a fair price point. Julio Jones hasn't played since week 4 with a knee injury. Track that status. If he plays, he'll be the clear wide receiver 3. If he's out again, we're going to have to drop down a little bit. And when we drop down, it will be to the next 2 wide receivers in line in this offense, Scotty Miller at $3,200 and Brashad Perriman at $1,200. Now, in the last game, Brashad Perriman actually ran more routes, but Scotty Miller directly replaced Russell Gage, and I would expect him to be the wide receiver 3 if Gage and Julio miss. So that's a lot, but the translation is basically, if there's no Gage and Julio, expect Scotty Miller to start. And to be honest, he's not that great. He ranks 96th at earning fantasy points versus man coverage this season, and his overall wide receiver efficiency is 90th. It is a smaller sample, but still not good. Quite simply, he just struggles to separate, which is not really a concern for this next player. And it has nothing to do with being a wide receiver against coverage. It has to do with Lamar Jackson separating when it comes to what he can do on the ground as a rusher. 9.4 rush attempts per game amongst quarterbacks. Absolutely fantastic, and is deserving of the highest price on this slate. Now, you see, Lamar Jackson is coming off of by far his worst game of the season, 10.7 fantasy points, but they only threw 16 times in this game. He still rushed 10 times for nearly 60 rushing yards, and he ended up putting up 120 passing yards. All of the red zone usage went to the running backs on the ground, Gus Edwards' 2 rushing scores. So this is something that I do not think is going to be sustainable. And now that's 3 straight games of having under 18 fantasy points. At this price point, we need 20 plus, but I expect it to come. I expect him to find the end zone and continue to run the ball. Right now on this slate, he is my favorite option above $10,000 out of Tom Brady, Mike Evans, and Lamar Jackson. Now let's discuss the Baltimore running backs, because we saw Gus Edwards return from injury last week, and he had a nice game. The fellow went for over 18 fantasy points, 16 touches on the ground, led this backfield by 5 more than Kenyon Drake, and he finds the end zone twice. It was a nice fantasy day. However, there was still a 3-headed backfield. Edwards only played 35% of the snaps. 3 running backs were heavily involved, including Kenyon Drake, who saw 10 plus touches. And let's not forget, Lamar Jackson is there, also saw 10 touches on the ground. Now, given the pretty clean split here of each running back seeing like 30% of the snaps, I think Gus Edwards is the worst play above $7,000 on this slate for the price point. He's not getting passing down usage. He would have to see another multi-touchdown game. I'm going to be betting against that. And it's not the greatest matchup against the Tampa Bay Bucs run defense that overall isn't great, but when it comes to tackling, which is something Gus Edwards lives off of, yeah, they're top 3 in tackling. All of this is why I took Gus Edwards under 50 50.5 rushing yards. It's down to 48.5. I still like the under. I have him in the low 40s. You get a free bet up to $100. Beautiful people, take advantage of it. If you bet, this is the time to take advantage of prizepicks.com, code SAL22. So I'm not impressed with Gus Edwards, but do I care about the other running backs in this backfield given their prices? The quick and dirty answer is no. Kenyon Drake is 4,600. I think there's better options that we will get to momentarily. 27% of the snaps last week, 11 touches, doesn't have too much burst left, and probably going to lose red zone work to Gus Edwards and Lamar Jackson. And then there's Justice Hill at $2,400, who I personally think is overpriced. Yes, he led the backfield in overall routes run last week, and on the season he's playing decent amount of snaps, right? He's playing 30% of the snaps or more now in 4 straight games, but the problem here is you're probably getting 4 or 5 touches at most, not worth the price tag. Instead, in that mid-range, in that range right around where Kenyon Drake is, I like another player on the Bucs more. And this is arguably the best play on the slate below $8,000, and that is going to be Cade Otton, who is $5,000 flat. It'll depend on the injuries of some of these Bucs receivers and other players, but he looks really good on this slate. He started for Cameron Brate, who, assuming Cameron Brate is out, of course, it's going to be a short week from him to come back from a scary injury that he had in week 6. Assuming Cameron Brate is out, you're going to see Cade Otton start again. And this past week when he started, he played 81% of the snaps and saw 5 targets. And now he started 2 games as a rookie this year, and this is what has happened. In his 2 starts, he's earned 12 targets on 84 outs, about a 14% target share, which is pretty healthy for a rookie tight end. Especially when you consider 14% of this team's passing volume is great. They're throwing 42 times per game and almost 50 times per game over the last 4 weeks. So expect some good usage for the Tampa Bay tight end, and then $9,200 Mark Andrews, who's coming off of one of the worst games we've ever seen from him. But there's 3 reasons why this happened. Well, he is also a great play, priced right next to Chris Godwin. You see, Mark Andrews was injured last week, and he has not yet practiced this week. Also, track Rashad Bateman, who did not practice on Tuesday after they said he would have practiced on the quote-unquote estimated injury report. They don't actually practice. They just say what would happen if they did. But track this news because Andrews dealt with injury all of last week. So one of the 3 reasons why he probably had a 2-target, no-reception game is because he was injured. He was injured in that game. The second reason, they only threw 16 times in the game. So that's a big reason why. And the third reason is the Browns defense, this is what Lamar Jackson said after the game, was playing a defense that said, Mark Andrews isn't beating us. He's not catching a ball. Let your receivers win their one-on-one matchups. They took a gamble, the Browns, and it paid off. The receivers on the Ravens aren't that great. And you can see how much of an outlier this game was. He's normally running 30-plus routes. He only runs 18 this week due to their lack of passing volume and running the ball more. So yes, this is a clear outlier. It's not sustainable. Now in the future, some defenses might say, hey, we'll just do what the Browns did and let these one-on-ones on the outside for the receivers and just take away Mark Andrews. Well, then that's a good day for Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay, but it's a short week. It's hard to implement for the Bucs. Speaking of the Bucs, let's discuss their running backs. $8,800 Leonard Fournette. He's slowly losing a lot more work to the rookie Rachaad White behind him in terms of snaps and overall passing usage. But let's not get it twisted. His overall usage on the year is still elite. He ranks 3rd amongst running backs with 5.6 targets per game, and he's seeing 17 red zone touches. His cheat code usage right now for the fantasy running backs, what you're seeing right here, is fantastic. Not only that, but he's breaking tackles. The concern, he's only getting 4.4 yards per touch, which is completely down from last year. It's outside the top 35 running backs this year, and there's 2 reasons for this. Offensive line play is down for Tampa Bay, and his skills are just slowly reducing as an older running back. And because of this, I'm actually taking the under 51.5 rushing yards for Fournette in this game. More Rachaad White usage, not a great offensive line. In general, he's losing more touches right now to Rachaad White, and if he gets there, I think it's from 1 touchdowns into the receiving game work. We'll take the under. This is the 3rd prop we've taken. Again, you get a free bet up to $100 with the link in the description below. And hey, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe for more. Now let's talk about the rookie running back out of Arizona State playing for the Tampa Bay Bucs, Rachaad White. And this is a fair price point at $4,800 for the slate after earning a season-high 43% of the snaps and splitting last week, splitting the routes run pretty evenly with Leonard Fournette. Fournette gets 25 routes and Rachaad White sees 21 routes. And now this week, it's a nice matchup against the Ravens, who rank 20th in run defense. Now I do prefer his teammate Cade Otton, still in a similar price range, but he's still in play. And now let's go back up top here. Tom Brady at $10,000. Although I like Lamar Jackson more, it is hard to ignore Tom Brady at this price point. Good quarterbacks are rarely below $10,000, and Tom Brady is a good quarterback, and he's seeing so much passing volume. You see, Brady is throwing over 42 times per game this year, and over the last 4 weeks alone, he's throwing over 48 times per game. That is fantastic. That is a player that should be priced probably closer to $11,000 or $12,000. I'd be taking Tom Brady over Mike Evans. I think Tom Brady, if you don't want to pay up for Lamar Jackson, is a fine spot to start lineups. Now, a guy I probably would be avoiding this week is going to be $6,400 Devin Duvernay, assuming Rashad Bateman plays in this game and Mark Andrews, and he's not like the #1 option out there, because in my opinion, he's just damn expensive at $6,400. I mean, realistically here, you're signing up for 4, maybe 5 targets out of Devin Duvernay, and the more usage Mark Andrews sees this week, the less for Devin Duvernay in terms of targets. The reason why he's this expensive is he scored a touchdown in each of the first 3 games on just low volume. One of them was a special teams return touchdown, and Rashad Bateman's been out the last couple of weeks, meaning he's seen more usage. But he's not the greatest wide receiver. Even with Rashad Bateman out for some weeks and Mark Andrews getting shut down last week, he still ranks 63rd amongst wide receivers receivers at earning targets. I think he's a solid wide receiver 3 at best here, but he's priced as if he's a clear wide receiver 2. He's behind Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews in a run-first offense. So I'd be passing up on Devin Duvernay, but I would not be passing up on the DFS blueprint. That DFS blueprint is what I use weekly, and I'm sharing it now with other people. It's a 5-step system that includes these 7 tools that you're seeing on the screen right now to win more. The whole goal, to help you win more in DFS and to actually stop losing. Stop the losing streak, stop depositing money, and win more in DFS. You can learn more with the link below in the description. All right, let's see if we can hunt for some value on this slate. We're now approaching the $4,000 and below range, and I do think the kickers and defenses are strongly in play. I would prefer Justin Tucker, and then it's a coin flip between Ryan Suckup and the Buccaneers defense. Ravens defense would be 4th there. Out of ranking those, I think they are fantastic values on this slate. Probably don't want to have more than one of them, to be honest with you, in a lineup, and at the most, just 2 total. Now, a player that I'm not too high on is going to be Demarcus Robinson, who only ran 3 routes and played 15 snaps last week with Rashad Bateman back. Again, if Bateman misses, Robinson maybe starts to get in play here, but I personally think that Robinson is a little overpriced at $2,800 for a guy who probably runs 5 to 10 routes at most here and doesn't get all that involved as the wide receiver 3. Now, this next situation is pretty interesting. The $1,600 Isaiah Likely, the rookie tight end, he was seeing a pretty decent role heading into this week, but then this past week, he runs just 3 routes. But before that, he was running, 15 plus routes almost every single week. He was averaging around 15 routes run. He was getting somewhere between maybe 4, maybe 5 targets, at least 2 targets. This past week, just 3 routes run. Again, they didn't throw that much, just 16 times, but he actually was ranked 4th on the team in snaps. And now I think this is because the 3rd string tight end, Nick Boyle, was more of a run blocker. He was in there more. Josh Oliver, who played as the 2nd tight end in this game, more of a run blocker. He was in there more. So that's why you saw less usage for Isaiah Likely. But there's a very good chance moving forward that $1,600 Isaiah Likely sees more usage, at least from a target standpoint, than his teammate, who's just $200 Josh Oliver. Honestly, overall, neither of them are really in play. Project for about 1 to 2 fantasy points. Other than that, there's not much down here. You'll have James Prochet, you'll have Jalen Darton. Darton, a special teamer, only in play if somehow Mike Evans also missed this game. Unlikely. James Proche, he is going to be somebody who is $600, more of a special teamer, wide receiver 4, not going to be in play. Cam Brate dealing with injury. So when we're looking for guys below $2,000, I'd rank it Isaiah Likely and Josh Oliver, but that's about it. After that, you're looking all the way up at Scotty Miller, $3,200 if there's no Russell Gage. Otherwise, you'll settle in with good, old, reliable Justin Tucker. Now, these are the players that will help you win this slate, but you still have to put them all together in one big lineup. And to properly build that lineup using projections, ownership, leverage, a lineup optimizer, you're going to need the DFS blueprint. So check it out right now with the link in the description below.